chosen one, God says third warning. God is repeating this final truth. You were never meant to stumble upon this message by accident. The fact that you are here, reading these words right now, is not coincidence. It is not luck. It is not the random collision of time and chance. You are here because something far greater than your own understanding has been pulling at you, quietly, persistently, sometimes painfully, and today, this moment, is the third time that voice is speaking to you. Not a whisper this time, a declaration. God does not repeat himself without purpose. When heaven says something once, it is wisdom. When heaven says it twice, it is urgency. When heaven says it a third time, listen with everything you have, because what is coming after this silence will either transform your life completely or leave you wondering forever what you missed. This is the third warning, and it is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to wake you up. There is a version of you that God has been trying to reach for longer than you realize. Not the version of you that performs for others, not the version that smiles through pain, that pretends to have it together, that shows up on the outside while crumbling somewhere deep on the inside. God has been reaching for the real you, the one buried under years of disappointment, under the weight of what people said you couldn't be, under the rubble of your own regrets, and the silent grief of dreams you gave up on. That version of you, the truest version, is what this message is about. That is who is chosen. That is who is being called. But understand this, being chosen is not what religion made it sound like. It is not an invitation to comfort. It is not a golden ticket to a life without storms. Being chosen means God saw something in you that the world tried to take away, and he refuses to let it die. Being chosen means you are being called into the fullness of what you were created to be, even when that calling costs you something, even when it requires you to leave behind what is familiar, even when the people closest to you do not understand the fire that has been placed inside you. Being chosen is a weight before it is a crown, but those who carry the weight faithfully, they will wear the crown in ways that defy every human explanation. Now hear this carefully. God has been speaking to you, not in the distant, theatrical ways that people sometimes expect, not necessarily through earthquakes or burning bushes or dramatic signs in the sky. He has been speaking through the quiet restlessness inside you that refuses to let you settle. He has been speaking through the doors that closed, no matter how hard you pushed. He has been speaking through the relationships that fell apart, even when you tried everything to hold them together. He has been speaking through the strange moments of clarity you felt at 3 a.m. when the world was asleep and your soul felt most awake. Those were not accidents, those were messages, those were invitations, those were the first 2 warnings. And you felt them. You know you did. There was a moment, maybe more than one, where something inside you shifted, where you felt the weight of a purpose you couldn't name but couldn't ignore, where you sensed, deeply and unmistakably, that there was more to your life than what was in front of you. You felt it in a song that suddenly broke something open inside your chest. You felt it in a stranger's words that landed so precisely on your wound that you had to look away. You felt it in the silence after a long cry, when somehow, impossibly, peace came. Those moments were God reaching through the noise of your life and touching the most sacred part of you. Those were not random emotional fluctuations. Those were divine encounters. That was the first warning. That was the second. This is the third. And here is what God is repeating. Here is the final truth that heaven has been trying to get into your hands, into your heart, into the core of your understanding. You have not been abandoned. You have been prepared. Say that again to yourself if you need to. You have not been abandoned. You have been prepared, because somewhere along the way, perhaps through the loss, through the struggle, through the seasons where it seemed like God had gone silent and heaven had closed its doors, You began to believe a lie, a devastating, carefully crafted lie that has stolen the peace of more chosen people than any force on earth. The lie is this, that your suffering means you are forgotten, that your delay means you are rejected, that your darkness means God has turned his face away from you. That lie is the enemy of your destiny, and this third warning is God standing at the edge of your understanding and declaring loudly, lovingly, unmistakably that it is not true. Every valley you have walked through has been a classroom. Every broken relationship has taught you something about your own worth and the kind of love you were actually created to receive. Every failure has burned away something that would have held you back from what is coming. Every season of waiting has been building in you a depth of character that cannot be manufactured, cannot be faked, cannot be given by shortcuts. You were not just surviving those seasons, you were being shaped inside them. The very things that felt like destruction were actually divine construction, and the architect of your life does not make mistakes. But God is also warning you about something today, and this is where the message becomes urgent. This is where the third warning carries weight that the first two could not carry. Because you are at a threshold, you are standing at a doorway between two versions of your future, and the choice you make in this season, the posture you take in this moment, the direction you turn your heart right now, it matters more than you know. There are people who receive warnings from God and they nod their heads and they feel something real in the moment, and then they go back. They go back to the same patterns. They go back to the same cycles of doubt. They go back to the relationships that drain them. They go back to the comfortable smallness that at least feels known. They go back to the fear that has always told them that they are not enough, that the dream is too big, that God couldn't possibly mean them when he talks about greatness. And those people are not bad people. They are not wicked. They are simply people who let the feeling pass without letting it change them. And God, in his mercy, warns them again and again. But there comes a moment, and chosen one, this may be that moment for you, where the warning carries finality, not because God stops loving. He never stops loving. But because the window of a particular season closes, because the specific door that was open for a specific purpose will not stand open forever, because there are things that God is doing in this era, in this time, in this chapter of your life, and they require your yes, they require your surrender, they require you to stop standing at the edge and step into the water. This is God repeating the final truth, because he sees you at that edge. He sees the hesitation, he sees the fear dressed up as wisdom, the procrastination wearing the costume of patience, the avoidance that has learned to call itself waiting on God. He sees through every layer, and rather than pulling back, rather than leaving you to your own reasoning, he leans in one more time, and he says, I chose you before you chose me. I knew your name before the world gave you one. I wrote the chapters of your redemption before you lived the chapters of your falling. I have not changed my mind about you. I have not revised my plans. I have not looked at your failures and decided to give your destiny to someone more qualified. I chose you in your weakness because my strength is made perfect there. I chose you in your brokenness because I am the God who restores. I chose you not because you were the obvious choice, but because I am not bound by obvious. I work in ways that confound the wise and strengthen the humble, and you, the one reading this right now, you are exactly the kind of person I do my greatest work through. Now let that land, because the next part of this message is about what God is calling you to do, not in a vague, spiritual, figure-it-out-yourself way, in a real, grounded, practical for your soul kind of way. Because the third warning is not just a revelation, it is a commission. First, God is calling you to stop shrinking. There has been a version of humility in your life that has actually been self-betrayal in disguise. You have made yourself small in rooms where you were called to be great. You have apologized for your gifts, minimized your vision, laughed off your dreams in front of people who you feared would not understand, and in doing so, you have not been humble. You have been hiding, and what you have been hiding is not yours to hide. The gifts inside you, the calling on your life, the vision that keeps returning no matter how many times you dismiss it, these do not belong to you. They belong to the people your life is meant to touch, to the legacy you are meant to leave, to the glory that God intends to display through your story. When you shrink, it is not just you who loses, the world loses, and God is saying in this third warning that it is time to stop. Second, God is calling you to break agreement with the voices that have defined you wrongly. There are words spoken over you, some by others, some by yourself, that have built invisible walls around your potential. Words like not good enough, too damaged, too late, too far gone, too ordinary, too complicated, too much history, not enough education, not enough background, not enough of whatever the world told you that you needed to be worthy of a significant life. Those words are not from God. They never were. And every day you hold on to them, you are choosing someone else's verdict over heaven's. God is calling you to renounce them, not just to feel better about yourself, but because the agreement with those lies is literally blocking the flow of what God is trying to move in your life. The blessing is held back, not by God's reluctance, but by the walls that wrong words have built, and you have the authority, in this moment, to tear them down. Third, God is calling you to steward the waiting, because here is a truth that the prosperity gospel never told you. Not everything that God has for you is coming right now. Some of it is coming, some of it is very close, but some of it is still being prepared, still being arranged, still being worked together in ways that require patience. And the chosen ones who step into the fullness of their calling are not the ones who never had to wait. They are the ones who learned to worship in the waiting, who learned to grow in the waiting, who refused to become bitter in the waiting, who used the space between promise and fulfillment, not to doubt God, but to deepen their character, strengthen their faith, and become the kind of person who can actually handle what is coming without being destroyed by it. The waiting is not punishment, it is preparation, and how you handle it determines what you are ready to carry when the doors finally open. Fourth, and this one is critical, God is calling you to protect your peace like it is sacred, because it is. There are drains in your life that have been slowly emptying you of the spiritual and emotional fuel you need to walk this calling out. There are conversations that consistently leave you heavier. There are environments that consistently shrink your vision. There are digital spaces, relationships, habits, and thought patterns that are quietly at war with the destiny God has placed on your life. And this is not about becoming rigid or fearful or cutting everyone off. It is about becoming intentional, about recognizing that a chosen life requires chosen boundaries, that a purposeful existence requires you to be a steward of your inner world, because from that inner world flows everything else, your decisions, your relationships, your creativity, your courage, your capacity to hear the voice of God when He speaks. And fifth, God is calling you to believe again. Whatever it was that made you stop, the disappointment, the silence, the dream deferred too many times, the prayer that seemed to go unanswered, the moment you gave your all and it still fell apart. God sees it. He has not forgotten it. He does not ask you to pretend it didn't hurt. He does not require you to manufacture a faith you don't feel. But He is asking you, in this third warning, to open the door of your heart just enough to let Him back into the places where you closed Him out. Because there are rooms inside you that have been locked for a long time, rooms of hope, rooms of expectation, rooms of the kind of joy that does not depend on circumstances. And God is standing at those doors, not demanding, not forcing, simply knocking, as He has always knocked, as He will always knock. And He is asking you to answer, because on the other side of your yes is something you have not been able to imagine from where you currently stand. Not because your imagination is too weak, but because what God has prepared for those who love Him surpasses the categories of human imagination. The life on the other side of your surrender is not just better than your current life. It is different in kind. It is the life you were actually made for, the one that fits the shape of your soul, the way nothing else ever has, the one where your gifts finally find their fullness. Your wounds become wisdom, your history becomes testimony, and the very things you suffered through become the bread that you break and hand to others who are starving for the same hope that you once needed. That is the life God is calling you into. That is what the chosen walk toward. But you have to choose it. That is the paradox of being chosen. God chooses you, but the choosing only becomes real when you choose back. When you lay down the version of your life you have been managing on your own terms and open your hands to the version that heaven has been holding, waiting for you to receive it. When you stop negotiating with your calling and start obeying it. When you stop waiting until you feel ready and start trusting that readiness is not a prerequisite, it is a byproduct of obedience. Nobody who was used greatly by God felt ready. Moses argued with the burning bush. Jeremiah said he was too young. Gideon called himself the least in his family. David was the one everyone else overlooked. Mary asked how such a thing could possibly be. Every single person whom heaven chose to mark with a great purpose had a moment, sometimes many moments, of profound inadequacy, of disqualifying themselves in their own minds, while God was busy qualifying them in the Spirit. And the ones who made history, the ones whose stories still carry power thousands of years later, were not the ones who had the least resistance. They were the ones who pushed through the resistance, who let the weight of the calling outweigh the comfort of the familiar, who decided that who God said they were mattered more than who the mirror, the crowd, or their own fear had told them they were. You are in that company. You may not feel it. You may be reading this through tear-blurred eyes or a tired heart, or the particular kind of exhaustion that comes not from doing too much, but from carrying too long the weight of not yet. But the company of the chosen is not defined by how it feels to belong to it. It is defined by the words spoken over your life before you were born, by the God who does not lie, who does not change his mind based on your performance, who is not keeping a tally of your shortcomings and deciding whether you still qualify. You qualify. You have always qualified, not because of what you have done, but because of who he is. This third warning is an act of love so fierce it should take your breath away. Think about it. God did not have to repeat himself. He did not owe you a second warning, let alone a third. The chosen often walk away. The called often refuse. The gifted often bury their gifts in the ground out of fear, out of comfort, out of the slow erosion that life and disappointment and the world's relentless pressure can cause. And God would still be God. He would still be holy, still be sovereign, still be working his purposes out in the earth. He does not need you the way you need him. And yet, he pursues, he warns, he speaks, he repeats, he leans in one more time. He sends one more message, one more moment of clarity, one more undeniable stirring in the soul of the person he has chosen, because his heart for you is not obligation. It is love. It is the kind of love that does not give up on the one it has chosen, that does not let 1,000 quiet rejections silence the 1,001st invitation. This is the 1,001st invitation, or perhaps it is the third warning. Either way, it is today, it is now, it is this breath you are taking, this moment that exists only once in the entire history of time, never to be repeated. And God has used it to speak to you, to find you, to remind you of what you are, who chose you, and what is waiting on the other side of your obedience. So what will you do with this? Not tomorrow, not when things settle down, not when you feel more ready, more spiritual, more together, more healed. Now, in this state, in this season, in the middle of whatever unfinished and unresolved and uncertain thing you are currently living through, God does not wait for your life to be clean before He enters it. He enters the mess. He starts in the middle. He builds from the broken pieces. He is not repelled by where you are. He is already there. The question is whether you will let Him work, whether you will stop trying to fix everything yourself before you trust Him with it, whether you will open the fist of your control and receive what the open hand of surrender makes available, whether you will, in this moment, say the simplest and most powerful word that any human being can say to God: yes. Yes to the calling. Yes to the process. Yes to the growth that requires discomfort. Yes to the boundaries that require courage. Yes to the dream that requires faith. Yes to the healing that requires honesty. Yes to the future that requires you to let go of the past. Yes to the God who chose you before you knew your own name, and who has been waiting, with a patience that outlasts every human understanding of the word, for you to choose Him back. Chosen one, this is the third warning. But more than a warning, it is an invitation to the life you were made for, to the fullness that has been prepared for you, to the story that God has been writing about you since before the foundations of the world, a story of redemption, of purpose, of power made perfect in weakness, of beauty rising from the very ashes you thought would bury you forever. The story is not over. It has barely begun, and God is calling you loudly, clearly, for the third time, to step into it. This is your moment. Don't let it pass.